In keeping with our theme of thinking like a director of photography, let's look at how we can divide our frame up with the use of lines, basically compositionally thinking of how vertical and horizontal lines or diagonal lines can help us focus and create a mood within a frame. Like we have in this frame here, we have uh, a bridge and the narrow lines that vanishing point, 1 point perspective is built into the shot. This is as far as an extreme long shot. We have people at the other end of the bridge, but the lines really focus everything for us. The bridge works for us, as does this stairway with an aerial shot looking down. It goes and diminishes to the square below as we get lighter and lighter, giving us a sense of depth. But it also, the line of stairway establishes a certain dizziness. We could use it in an action adventure escape or a horror movie or some kind of nightmare. It's already built into the lines of the shot. And this shot here, using less of a vertical sense but more of a horizontal sense of lines, helps us focus. And this is a Marienbad kind of shot, last year at Marienbad. But the lines, the pathway, and the railings all kind of give us a subtle vanishing point. But the lines itself are so wide apart, and people are so spread apart. So we got the vertical cypress trees and the low shadows and the lines of the railings. It separates everything in a very balanced and yet seemingly flat version of what we're looking at, and it gives us the mood that of isolation and alienation. So ever since movies began, they're using lines in order to help frame their shots within the shot. Here in the stagecoach scene, we have the frame and the window of the stagecoach helping us introduce a character with her close up, but also giving us a sense of depth with our other character, letting her out of the stage. The line, the door cutting his face off, not only diverts our attention to her, which is what the director wants, but also gives us depth to the shot, which is even advanced with the buildings and the horse behind. So we really get a good 3D sense early on in film here because of the well use of the use of lines that help us establish a shot. And of course, in High Noon, here's some vertical lines that are famous. And here's Cooper in his town. He's alienated from the town. He's the only one who wants to defend the town. But he is upright, like those porch pillars lined up behind him. He's a stand up guy. We have a vertical frame in this picture. Here we have diagonal lines slashing over our character, and what it does is it makes us feel like we're peeking in or she's peeking out. It compresses her, and it's like we're sneaking a look just by framing. Having the lines in the frame slash across, suddenly cutting something off, it kind of has us kind of hunch over with her, as with this gentleman here. It looks like we're eavesdropping or are peering into the window, but it's almost like we're peeping toms here. So we can use it in many different genres, but by doing this, it makes us lean in. And using slashing diagonal lines, like in this shot here, a movie out of the 50s, almost like a Frank Stella painting where we have vectors slashing across the frame. It gives us a sense of vitality and energy and struggle and all those things that you'd see in a movie like Danny Darko, for instance, slashing across the frame, diminishing the human part and advancing the manufacturing dominant part. Here, Godard, using lines, although it's all circles, you say, well, what are the lines? Well, these lines are very vertical, very flat. This woman here, inside her hairdressing salon, everything is straight up and down, and even those mirrors, those spherical mirrors are so evenly placed. It seems like everything is in columns. So this sense of line here, although it's circular, feels very vertical. And what we get with that and this shot here is a flatness. This is, of course, Wes Anderson, and he gives us a flatness because not only are the color palette very similar, the pink leading into the pink, leading into the light brown. That flattens it, but also the staging of the lines in the sense that everything's vertical against the horizontal eave there, as Warren Beatty would be doing the opposite here in parallax view. He is in a car, and the lines don't emphasize the vertical nature as if he's some entablature or fresco on a wall. These actually give him an isolation and a distance, not only because they frame him within the frame with that window in the lower third, but also the cars in the background are also framed, so that that weird headlight to the right of the frame seems intrusive. So the way the shot's broken up looks like he is being pursued. Here, we've got a nice. This Raging Bull. Of course, he's a shot. And here he's using the old-time divider, the windshield, as a help to frame his shot. So he's got everybody. And what he's done here, he's got Jake LaMotta and his girlfriend. What he does is, because he puts her hair on one side of the frame, that makes it a little uneven, but it also makes us feel like she is really pressed against him because she's bleeding over the frame into his space. And so it increases the sense of companionship in that shot. And going back here to the shot we saw earlier with Warren Beatty in parallax view, the excellent use of line and frame here. The line, I want to draw your attention to, we've already talked about the framing of the door, but look at that line of that weird weight scale that's hanging there right between Beatty and the woman on the slab there. It divides the space where he's dark on one side and she's light on the other. He's vertical and she's horizontal, but the dividing line of that weight scale on rollers there divides the frame within the frame and also separates both characters, and it just a sense of depth keeps going and going. It's not only the light and it's a single line that we have with that scale. And here lines providing more depth and scale, with the phones are obviously enlarged in the foreground, helping us out in a wide angle shot. But it's the lines in the background that puts this gentleman in this, where the lines meet at kind of a vanishing point in the upper right third, so that you're drawn to looking at him because of the lines in the background, and then he's isolated in the vertical lines. So it's a wonderful way of guiding your eye. And of course, we talked earlier about Gordon Willis and following Marc Brassai, using his division of lines and in that misty kind of, it's a flat, very flat picture, not much depth, but the lines and the light on the bridge provide the depth. It's just like the line separates the skeleton from Woody here, and the lines separate Woody from the rest of his actors here. And here we have a wonderful example of how Willis uses the line to separate Pacino here from future victim. And you can feel that because of the way the line is set up in the shot, this gentleman on the right he's almost squished in. You can feel that he feels pressured. The line adds a pressure that Pacino, who's relatively almost blacked out, underexposed to the point where he's almost invisible, you can feel how this guy fears him, but just by the line in the shot. And the opposite here in Annie Hall, Woody's line established here with the lobster. Because the pole he's got in his right hand, it separates Woody from the lobster, and Diane, of course, is having fun shooting it. So it shows his fear because of the leading of the pole, but it separates the shots that we can feel that he wants to be disengaged more from the lobster rather than if it weren't there. It's the way shot's set up. And also, when I draw your attention, Woody wants this to be a pastel movie, but look at what Gordon Willis did with his tones. He made sure that the kitchen had that dark brown mahogany look to it to get that Gordon Willis look with that wooden salad bowl behind Diane Keaton's head. And here we got a wonderful set of lines here. Now these are vertical lines. Look at the hammers in the upper thirds and the legs. Legs are always great to establish vertical lines and vanishing points, as we see here. And in the upper third was the whip. So it's all put together like we have in this shot. That was the advertising shot for 3:10 to Yuma, using legs as a vanishing point, vertical vanishing point. And this wonderful shot here from Kubrick's Clockwork Orange. But look at the way we use the legs here. Kubrick uses the legs for not only a vanishing point, but to establish, the rigidity of the exercise and the depth to the scene. But going back to our woman with the hammers, we know she's into no good because we've already focused on the hammers. So we go into the subway here, and we've got a medium two-shot, right? This is kind of like a cowboy two-shot, and they're all balanced, the rule of thirds. But look at the lines here. The lines in the subway car are very vertical because this is what we hold on to and everything. But because we put the pole in front of her, it's going to give us a sense of depth as we go back in the car, and also add action to it, movement, because if you have movement behind a line, it's going to seem faster than if that pole wasn't there, because the difference between what's in front of the movement and what's behind the movement will add speed to the movement, which is going to be crucial because when we're talking about wielding the hammer here, which is wonderful upper third wielding of the hammer, we talk about wielding it, it's going to come into the upper third portion here, and suddenly we do not need the sense of depth being broken up because we are flat in almost an extreme close-up, a close-up, giving us a sense of the line is the hammers have gone from the lower vertical to the upper vertical, and speaking of vertical lines, here are the most famous vertical lines of recent memory, of course. Hannibal Lecter framed within his prison cell, using those vertical lines to spook us out, that kind of shadowy, out of focus sense of darkness that frames the evil man.